I'm Vincent.
I'm Noons.
I'm Nick.
And I'm also Nick. And just like most Steam games that come out nowadays, we're going early access, baby, and we're trying some new things. Welcome to the S Plus Podcast, where we tell you about stuff, and more stuff, and more stuff.
All right, set us off. Let's go. Get me started. Tell me what's happening today. Tonight
we're talking about cinematography and editing. A topic that I'm particularly passionate about. And when I say that, I mean like the making of the movie, the setting up of the scene and cutting the scenes together to make a coherent story.
The craft of movie making.
The cutscenes in video games.
Yeah, I mean, they fall under a similar spectrum. It'd be really weird if you saw cutscenes in a video game that like didn't make any sense, and you were kind of going all over the place. Definitely not looking at Final Fantasy X or anything like that.
The game is fantastic.
The cutscenes are so strange.
No, they're not. They're perfect. Next. We're not talking about video games today.
We are not talking about video games today, actually.
Unless it comes up. But, whatever. But, yeah, so tell me about your making of the video games. Why, or not video games, movies. Like, what interests you about the craft and all the good stuff?
I really enjoy when a movie is made well as written well. Because everything that you see in a movie was a choice that was made by somebody or a group of people. And so seeing those choices, when they're like really intelligent choices, even if they're very subtle, they really kind of stick out to me. Subtlety is a major backbone to cinematography and editing, because the best editing and cinematography is done subtly. You don't walk out of a good movie and say, oh, that movie was really well edited. No, you say it was good, and the editing is an afterthought. But whenever you walk out of something like, I don't know, Suicide Squad, you go, holy crap, that movie was so badly like edited. There were so many things that didn't make any sense, and plot holes.
Picking everything apart.
Yeah. I guess it's because as humans we recognize things that we dislike more than we like.
Poo. Yeah.
Okay.
So do you have like a favorite, like you said, like subtleties make the movie? Is there like a moment in your life where you realize like, oh my God, that thing is so subtle, but it makes this movie so great?
I think Inglourious Bastards, the opening scene, which is the most talked about and one of the best scenes in cinema history, in my opinion. I don't want us to get reamed and dragged for this, but
you're good.
There's
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree with you.
Yeah, it's extremely tense. Just the family recognizing that there's Nazis coming in to their little shack in the middle of France in 1941, and they have to get things prepared, and they don't show us until we're like halfway through the conversation that they're hiding a family of Jewish people, and the way that they show us is paying homage to I think it's an Alfred Hitchcock quote, where it's like if you take
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Which one is he talking about?
He's talking about the quote from Alfred Hitchcock. It's one of a few where like a lot of young cinematographers are taught this, because this is because Alfred Hitchcock is your foundation for suspense as well as like character or like tension in general. So what Alfred Hitchcock would teach and tell people is that nothing would cause more tension for the audience than there being a bomb underneath the table where two people are sitting, but the two people at the table aren't acknowledging the bomb.
Yeah.
And as the bomb starts ticking down slowly and slower and slower towards that end, while these two people are talking, the tension for us is rising while they are maintaining their normal stature. And that's the basis of tension. And it's like when you see the scene in Inglourious Bastards, you don't think of that quote and that foundation of suspense, but you understand it. And that's what's incredible about this scene, is that there's so much tension there that you feel it, that the guy sitting at the table with Hans Landa feels it, that like everybody in the theater should be feeling that same amount of tension, and it's executed so well. And then the dialogue on top of that is what adds to the scene. But continue.
The way that we discover the bomb, as it were, is also a really smart choice, because instead of just like cutting away from the table where they're sitting to under the floorboards, and there's the Jewish family hiding, covering their mouths, trying not to make a sound at all. Instead, what they do is they bring the camera down from where they're like looking at the dialogue between these two, and they just slowly pan down under the table and then under the floorboards, and that's when we discover the bomb. So it's that would not have been as much of like a good revelation if they had just cut back and forth from it. Excuse me. So that scene is really, really well done in every sense, including cinematography and editing. I mean, the sound design for that scene is also really good, because as they're talking, as this metaphorical bomb is ticking away, there's no music. It's just them. You can hear a pin drop in the room. You can hear the chair creak as they're, moving around and talking to each other. And that's something that creates good tension as well.
And adds emphasis to the fact that they have to be silent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a moment when Hans Landa steps on a floorboard that creaks a little bit funky, and he knows that it's hollow underneath the house.
Yeah.
And the entire time, he knows that there are people under the house. Regardless on whether or not he's actually looked underneath the house, he knows. And that's Hans Landa's character. And I think with Inglourious Bastards, characterization in that movie is also one of the most standout things about that movie. Being that, Hans Landa, the Bear Jew, Brad Pitt's character, they're all, standout characters on their own.
Yeah,
where,
you can kind of identify them.
Yeah, they're easily identifiable. Each one of the bastards is identifiable. And each, SS member that you meet throughout the movie is identifiable. And even in some ways, oddly enough, that they're relatable. Yeah. And that's what that movie does really well, I think.
Yeah. To steer back on topic, but still on Inglourious Bastards, there's also the restaurant scene where Shosanna, she goes as a different person on kind of this date with an SS member, because she's trying to get something out of him. But Landa shows up, and she's from the first scene. She was the girl that escaped. And so she has to sit there trying to be someone else as Landa speaks to her almost casually. And she has to make sure that she doesn't show any emotion or start panicking. And she's got all this, emotion inside of her. And that's shown with the camera work as well, because we get a bunch of far shots over Shosanna's shoulder looking at Landa. But every time we look at Shosanna, we're in her face. We are close up. This is a very emotional camera setting to be that close to somebody. And if she makes if she makes one wrong emotion with her face, the audience is going to see it, and we know that Landa's going to see it. So that's another way that's the other metaphorical bomb in that scene is that if she does anything wrong, she's going to get discovered, or she feels like she's going to get discovered.
I like it.
That's one of the powerful things about cinematography and editing is that you might not notice it, but like conveying these kind of emotions is done really well whenever whenever the camera is set properly.
Mm-hmm. So, for you, both of you or all of you, or do you think, is there ever a time where like the editing may not be that good, but the writing is so well done that it just you're like, they couldn't do the editing well, but I understand what they wanted to do, and that kind of makes up for it?
I think,
or is it non-permissible?
there are plenty of good, there are plenty of exceptions to that kind of thing or not exceptions, but examples of that where the editing is done very procedurally, but the writing is so good that it carries the movie. I'm trying to think, like, I can't remember the name of the movie I want to say right now.
Could you
describe it?
Yeah, describe it.
It's a space movie. The Martian. There it is.
Interstellar.
That one's actually... But so that kind of like leans into a problem I have with a lot of modern cinema, everything
revolves around the moon.
No, it's got like the Marvel problem where every scene has to have some type of quip.
Yeah.
You know what? Like it seems like a really prevalent problem in a lot of movies nowadays is that with Marvel movies especially, nearly every scene ends with some kind of witty dialogue or some type of quip. The Martian does that too, a lot. But that's also kind of Matt Damon's own style of acting, where he kind of lends to being a serious actor that also makes jokes from time to time.
Yeah. And the cinematography and editing in that movie is done very kind of by the book, and it's extremely subtle what they do, any kind of tricks that they use, where I can think of one with the potato garden. So whenever a camera is in a high up position overlooking something, that means that a character that may be looking from that perspective, or a character that is concerned with that perspective, feels like he is over the situation or over the thing that we're looking at. And so him successfully cultivating a potato garden on Mars and then us getting a good look at it from above is, one, getting a good look at it from above and seeing the whole thing and the fruits of his labor, but also a triumphant feeling. We're looking down on the fruits of his labor.
Okay, so
and then go ahead.
So I have a lot of thoughts on The Martian because it's one of those movies that has a lot of CGI, and it is very two set. It has two very specific locations where it's filmed, and there's only so many specific camera angles that you can use. And I wouldn't even argue yes, what you're saying is probably correct, and it seems that way. But there's no emotional passage for me into that movie or emotional relatability from those camera angles. It just feels like they didn't have a lot of space to work with on two sets.
Well, so to show you the a juxtaposition, whenever the door blows open and it ruins the garden, instead of us looking from above over the ruined garden, we get a low neutral shot where it's literally from his perspective, and we look back and forth across it. Because instead of us feeling accomplished or us feeling like we're over this potato garden, we're in the character's shoes, and we're encouraged to feel what he's feeling as he looks about over the potato garden.
Okay, so yeah, I get that, but what about The Martian feels procedural in the editing, but the writing is phenomenal.
I really enjoy the movie and the book. I've read the book as well. The Martian is one of my favorite movies. It's
I mean
it's a
book is really
niche
good.
movie. Yeah, it's better than the movie, but
Yeah,
it's
I
Go ahead.
I think about The Martian, and I think like it is a B+ movie to me.
Mm.
Like the writing is pretty great. It suffers from that modern day movie problem of being kind of jokey a lot.
Yeah. A lot of
but a lot of
comedic
people
relief.
don't really relate to serious movies anymore, right? And I think that's why we haven't seen like a film noir revival or like more gritty action films like what we used to see in the 80s.
What do you mean by people don't relate to serious movies?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate?
Okay.
Have you seen Godzilla v Kong? Pretty serious movie.
It's not a serious movie. At no point do I like watch the Godzilla movies and feel like it's a serious movie. They are all like consistently hokey, but not in the same way that the original Godzilla movies are hokey.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Well, what's a serious movie that you think if it were to come out today, people wouldn't be able to like relate to?
Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown is Quentin Tarantino's, I believe, third film. Came out, I want to say, late 90s, early 2000s. It was a serious drama piece, and not a lot of people know about it, and not a lot of people have seen it. Even people who are huge fans of Quentin Tarantino,
Mhm.
like, shy away from it because it's honestly not a great movie to relate to.
There's not enough feet in it.
Yeah, there's not enough.
There's not enough foot angles
is
and
it-
shit
Yeah.
like
That
that.
sounds like it's just a movie that's unrelatable, period. But I mean, like, what's something that's relatable, that was relatable, that, like, you think would come out now that is not relatable?
Let me think.
Or, like, people
I feel
wouldn't
like-
relate to
I'm
that
going to
they
lean
would
into
have.
this and say Maltese Falcon. It's a film noir movie, or Double Indemnity, or any Hitchcock film besides The Birds or Psycho. So movies like Vertigo, Maltese Falcon, like I said, and Double Indemnity. These movies that exist as serious films that don't have a lot of levity in them don't have that same relatability because A, those movies are part of their times, and if they were to come out now, there's less relatability. Like for people now, for them to be like, oh, I relate to that character on screen. You know,
I would
like,
agree.
that detective on screen, that's me. I solve everything. You know? And that's like, it seems a little odd to say, yeah, back in the late 30s, early 40s, 50s, you would find yourself relating to the detective in the Maltese Falcon or the Private Eye. But a lot of people in the 40s and the 50s and even in the 60s watching these movies relate because a lot of the older men that would go to watch this movie were war veterans. And the Private Eye is a war veteran, which is a common, like, it's the common denominator in a lot of film noir, is that the main character is a former member of the Army, the Air Force, the Navy. Right?
Mhm.
But that's easy relatability. Right now,
Yeah.
a movie like Jarhead to come out today may be more relatable because a lot of people joined up in the military because of movies like Jarhead. And that's
Yeah.
like easy common relatability where like a serious movie relates to people. Whereas a lot of movies that come out nowadays, like Marvel movies, The Martian, they all do this thing where they're trying to be joking and characters are trying to be fun, and levity and comedy is something that a lot of people relate to a lot easier than hard situations where you wouldn't know what to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That makes sense. I
Kinda.
wonder if it's a symptom of the movies that are being released or the movies that people are actually seeing.
Yes,
Right? Are people
I can agree on
picking
that.
out? Are people showing the movies that like is it a victim of money, right? Like, people like the levity, the flashy movies because they're cool and awesome. But is just everyone trying to chase that cash cow? And that's the reason it seems like no serious movies are being met?
So, I have a couple of things. I would agree to some extent, because if we look at a modern day film noir, like the
Sin City.
no, Sin City's a parody. It's that's not really a good example, but what is it? Oh shit! No, why can't I remember any movie titles?
Describe it.
It's got Ryan Gosling. They're in the 70s.
Nightcrawler?
No, it's like
Daredevil?
No.
it's
I don't know anything.
Oh,
I'm
it's
just-
Ryan Gosling. My bad.
Daredevil?
Oh, it's
The Funny Guys. No, fuck.
no. That one came out recently that has Russell Crowe in it.
Yeah, Russell
I know
Crowe.
what you're. I know. Is it the Russell Crowe one?
Yeah,
it's the
Russell
Funny
Crowe and
Guys.
Ryan Gosling.
It's the Funny
No.
Guys that came out 2 years ago.
Nice Guys. The Nice Guys.
Something like that, yeah.
The Nice Guys is an example of a modern day film noir in a way, and there is a lot of comic relief and levity in it. However, I'll counter with this. While not exactly a film noir, The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson is a really good example of movies like that being made that are also becoming really popular. But it's kind of like it opens to a niche audience, and then people are like, hey, this movie is really good. You guys should go see it. And
Okay,
then it gains traction.
Okay, so my thought on The Lighthouse is it's a modern horror film, which a lot of people enjoy horror films now. Like, horror films are a big genre now. But it also has two of the biggest poster boys, like, in modern acting in the movie. You know? It has Willem Dafoe, who's been in everything from... why can't I remember this one? Oh, God.
You got
Two
Boondock
Irish
Saints,
brothers, Boston.
Boondock Saints.
Boondock Saints. He's been in everything from Boondock Saints to, Jesus Christ, a whole bunch of Disney movies.
To Spoderman.
Yeah,
I
to
don't even know who that is by name.
Green Goblin.
Yeah, Green Goblin from Spider-Man, Sam Raimi.
Oh, that skinny dude.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
Like-
with the long, like, nice head.
yes.
Yeah.
He's
No,
got a
that's,
nice head.
yeah, he's got a pretty nice head. And you got Robert Pattinson, who was in Twilight.
I know who that is.
Yeah.
That's my boy. Team Losers.
I know him from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
True. from
That was
Goblet of
where I
Fire.
also saw him first. But those two are pretty big names and one of the biggest indie films in the last few years. And both of them are huge in the indie scene to begin with. So I'd argue that, like, them doing a horror or like a psychological thriller film together was like the obvious perfect storm for this movie to be successful, both in box office and afterwards.
Okay. Then second counterpoint, Logan.
That one, I got nothing because that movie's perfect.
Serious
in
movie.
every way.
People
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
But people
Yeah.
really enjoy it. I think I can pick out why.
Okay.
Because as much as it is the end of Hugh Jackman's reign as everybody's favorite X-Men in the movies, it's also us, like, moving past
Wait,
that.
did Hugh Jackman play Storm?
Yes, he clearly played
He-
Storm.
He auditioned
but
for
as-
Storm.
As Wolverine, like, because the first X-Men movie came out, what, 2000? 2001?
2004, I thought.
2004? Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
But, like, Hugh Jackman has been in every single X-Men film except for two of them.
I was very
and-
wrong. It was 2000. You were right.
But Logan is him ending his career as Wolverine, but it's also a movie about us moving on with Hugh Jackman away from this role.
Yeah.
But isn't the like story of that movie just really beautiful too?
It's a Western, and I love it.
Yeah. And it's to talk about the cinematography of it. It was shot with filming it in black and white in mind, so the lighting is really, really beautiful in color, but it was lit specifically so that it could translate well into black and white, and it made two really good versions of an already really good movie.
I don't remember them premiering the film in black and white because I remember they stuck with the color for the main release. But you can still watch the movie in black and white with the Blu-ray.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sort
I
of
know
like
it's old school, but you could also watch it in black and white if you hit the little menu button and you turn hue down.
Yeah, if you just
all
turn
the
every
way.
color setting down, that's
It's
the
sort-
original way to
it's-
watch every movie.
I guess like Logan is the like visual equivalent of Ghost of Tsushima.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a game that was made for both black and white and color, but thrives in both equally.
Yeah.
And like that movie also has some of the best storytelling in
It's
all
got
of like
fantastic storytelling.
any type of superhero movie. I think it's got one of the best. Anyways, that's just
So
me.
let's pivot to a serious movie that was made because they thought people wanted serious movies, but turns out nobody in the crowd wanted it. Batman v Superman, garbage movie.
Okay, so that one's. I will both.
Snyder cut.
Okay, so I'm gonna line up to both
The
defend this
Schneider
movie
cut?
and to kick it in the ass. Okay, so there's so much going on with this movie. It suffers from like this like serious studio intervention. Like it
Yes, it
feels
does.
like it feels like there's so much missing from the movie that's key to functioning.
Warner Brothers has for some reason this knack for fucking up DC movies.
I don't
Like-
understand. I don't understand why they do it. It doesn't make sense because like Batman v Superman has decent bones, but nothing else nothing works. Like
Yeah.
nothing about it work. There's so much.
lacking muscle definition.
Yeah, it's really funky. It makes you like it. I don't know how to explain it. Like other than like they expect you to know everything about their universe, without you ever having experienced anything within the cinematic universe besides Superman.
Yeah, it's an editing issue, is what it is. Warner Brothers, for whatever reason, whenever they're producing a DC movie, they're like, "Hey, we want you to make a DC movie," to whatever director's doing it. And then the director goes out and they make a DC movie with their own style and their own vision. And then Warner Brothers is like, "Yeah, but we wanted it to be this long and we want it to appeal to these people. So we want you to cut out a bunch of stuff that's really important to the story, leave all of this other fluff in so that you can make your 2-hour runtime." Well, in the case of Batman v Superman, 2.5 hour. Like, that was an editing disaster. It was somehow 2.5 hours long and felt way too long, but also way too short.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with like. So, Batman v Superman is the sequel to Zack Snyder's Superman, right?
Mhm.
But the problem with that is you're also introducing Bruce Wayne as a character and Batman as a character, and both are one singular character, right?
Yeah.
But you only show Bruce's motivation. You only show how Bruce is affected by anything. Right? In like parallel to this, let's talk about Captain America Civil War, where Bruce Wayne's parallel Tony Stark has an interaction where you see his motivation and you also understand where Iron Man is coming from, because then they give Iron Man's position too. But that's the Russo brothers being able to show one character that exists as two. Whereas in Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman, they don't separate Bruce Wayne from Batman and show that characterization correctly. And then they both say Martha, and I don't like it. Just the movie falls apart.
Yeah, I agree. They show Bruce Wayne doing the setup for Batman doing the punching, and that's that whole character.
So what could they have done to make it better?
Make a Batman movie first.
I agree.
Like it sounds like, because it's just, the movie's called Batman v Superman, but the last reference that people have for Batman is Christian Bale as the Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight, yeah.
And the Dark Knight is an entirely different character than Ben Affleck's Batman. Like they
and
are. Go for it.
Couldn't exist in the Superman universe either. Like, he's Christian Bale made a really good Bruce Wayne and Batman, but that Batman couldn't be in the Superman, like in the DC Justice League universe, because it's almost a completely different character, because the director had a different vision had their own vision for what they wanted to do. So Christian Bale would not survive or work well in the DC universe, I think.
And I think a lot of that has to do with how the characterization of Superman functions, right? Because in Zack Snyder's universe, he's omniscient. Like, he's literally everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Where, with a lot of people, animated, the Superman animated show, or Lois and Clark, or Superman Returns, Superman 1, 2, and 3, all these movies, Superman is a very local hero.
Mm-hmm.
For how powerful he is. But in the Snyderverse, he is omnipotent. He is literally everywhere, all the time.
They didn't show that scene of him going out into space and listening to the Earth for crime.
Yeah. No, and that's it's just the DC universe suffers from expecting people to just know.
Yeah.
And there's Snyder has great ideas, but he doesn't seem like a person who's great when being rushed. Does that make sense?
I mean, with the Justice League scenario, you guys know what happened, right?
Yeah, the Snyder Cut was awesome, apparently.
Well, Zack Snyder had to leave from directing the movie kind of halfway through because his daughter committed suicide. So they brought in Joss Whedon to finish the movie, and it's two totally different tones. And usually you can kind of fix that in post, as you've heard a ton of, I'm sure. But they didn't fix that with editing, and so the two tones really come out, and it makes for a very confusing movie.
There's also the Henry Cavill mustache.
Yeah, the worst edit that I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible CG.
So there's a lot of problems with Joss Whedon that I can't really talk about, because that's a whole bunch going on.
Illegal.
But, Joss Whedon has this problem where if he's not the one who came up with the universe, it's not going to function well in his hands. You know, he excelled in Buffy, he's excelled in Angel, he excelled at writing all these great shows and movies, but he's the one who wrote it, he's the one who directed it, and he's also kind of part of the reason.
Bad dungeon master.
What?
That's what we call a bad dungeon master.
Yeah. But with Joss Whedon taking over on the Justice League movie, is that it ends up not making any sense, because he changed a lot of the script.
Yeah.
Where instead of getting a real big bad and an introduction to the most important heroes of the Justice League, we get 95% and then a minor big bad. And told, hey, we'll make another movie eventually. And bomb at the box office. Which kind of sucks. You know, because
Yeah.
like it would have been cool to see Green Lantern show up, right? And Ezra Miller's a fantastic actor. For him to only get maybe 20 lines of dialogue in the latter quarter of the movie, and I don't know, it's just Justice League was a mess, and I haven't watched the Snyder Cut yet, and I heard it improves the movie, but I don't know how much.
By about 2 hours. No. Green Lantern is an interesting thing because he was supposed to show up in Zack Snyder's cut as well, but Warner Brothers went ahead and instead of sticking to their promise where they were like, Zack Snyder's going to have free reign, it's going to be his cut, he's going to do it all. Warner Brothers was like, no Green Lantern, that's too much. And they went ahead and they stuck their fingers into the movies that nobody wanted them to do it in again. So he had to cut Green Lantern showing up as well out of the Zack Snyder cut. It's not even his full cut.
Yeah, but I mean,
Warner
I don't
Brothers
need
is
another.
So bad.
I don't need another Seven Samurais in my life because that movie's 4.5 hours long, spread across 4 discs on Blu-ray. I love that movie, but like I don't know, Zack Snyder isn't the Russo brothers.
No.
He's passable, but he's not the Russo brothers, and the Russo brothers do a really good job at piecing together an entire movie universe. But like speaking on like studio interference, what about Fantastic Four, the newest one?
Oh, Fan-Four-Stick. I mean, I actually just watched that today.
I give it a 4
Yeah, hard 4. Like
for fantastic.
4 out of 10. Would not watch again. I watched it today. It's 20th Century Fox, right?
Yes, it is.
Apparently, and I only know this because the director tweeted about it. The studio, 20th Century Fox, destroyed his vision. Like, they don't get their powers until halfway through the movie. They only end up fighting Doctor Doom once when he's the main bad guy of the whole film. We don't even see him until the second third. Until the final third. He's the start of the final third of that movie, and he's our main bad guy. Like, that's poor storytelling, and apparently the studio had a lot to do with that.
Okay, so with that let's compare it to the originals, where like they get their like the movie starts, 25 minutes in, solar radiation comes through. It's like the classic story, hits the station, they all get affected by it, right?
Yep.
And then over the next 25 minutes of the movie, everyone's getting used to their powers, goofing off, trying to figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's 40 minutes of the movie. In that movie, you still have another 55 minutes. But like the subplot along them all learning how to use their powers is Doctor Doom also learning how to use his powers.
Yeah, and keeping it secret.
Yeah, and then also gradually moving up towards being a villain. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, never do I feel like his motivations and how he ends up there were the wrong direction for his character. Right? But you also see them learn the powers, get used to their powers, and then perfect their powers by the end. And that's something that the newest Fantastic Four doesn't do.
No, they skipped it, and then they show it to us in flashbacks.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
What? So, in movies, how much time do you think is like a good amount of time to not only introduce characters, but show progression? Because I know that either they rush it a lot of the time, or they extend it way too long to the point where it's just boring. Do you think that there's like a middle ground, and how much time do you think that is for character development? I guess that'd be the right term, character development.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was having like a similar thought, like, because Noon said, they didn't bring up the villain till the third part.
Yeah, the final
and
third.
it's like, But sometimes a character is more than just a person on screen. Sometimes he's a motivating factor without being there.
Yeah.
And I was like, sometimes in my mind, at least for like a story, sometimes the enemy doesn't need to show till the end, right? Or if at all. So yeah, I'm curious to hear an answer to the question.
I feel like it specifically for Van Forstic, it was just strange that Victor Von Doom just disappeared after they went to the other dimension. Yeah, 25 minutes in, they go to the other dimension, and then they just lose Victor Von Doom. And the next time we see him is when they go back in the final third and bring him to Earth, and he's just like, "Well, Earth's got to die." Smile, and starts destroying stuff. But for the most part, your first third is supposed to be character introduction, and a setup of how of like what our expectations for the movie is supposed to be. The second third of the movie is supposed to be discovery, and which happens for the characters and for the audience. And then the final third is, the culmination of both the characters' development, the world building, and the discovery that both the audience and the characters have gone through, and the culmination of all of the action that has gone throughout the movie as well. So you kind of have the characters developing all the way throughout the movie, and a really procedural way of doing that is starting with a character, introducing that character to some other characters. They all find a common cause, and then they do discovery about the common cause. However, some things get a little rocky and they kind of break apart. And that's the start of the final third, where our characters are at their lowest. And then they come back together, overcoming their differences or whatever it is, to finally achieve the common cause and becoming, as a bonding moment, they come together over it. It's like,
yeah,
basic.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me.
So I have one, and I think you guys, because it might be easier to give you like an example of a movie that might work with you guys. But Scott Pilgrims versus the World. So
yeah, that's definitely good.
Yeah, that one,
because it's literally all about progression.
Yeah, that's the entire movie. So the interesting about Scott Pilgrim as a movie is that it kind of doesn't function in the standard hero's journey design for most movies or most books, where like you start off with the main character and their small entourage, and then there's something that happens, and then that something is supposed to push the character forward, the main character forward, and he drags his entourage, and then it starts like that progression upwards, uphill, towards some type of realization or some type of emotional breakthrough. And then after that, the movie speeds towards the end. Or the book. Mm-hmm. And that's basic character development. But what Scott Pilgrim does is that Scott as a character has multiple thresholds to cross, as well as every other character that exists in Scott Pilgrim's world, except for the X's. Where the X's are, like you said earlier, Vincent, kind of prevalent throughout the whole movie. And while not necessarily revealed immediately, they are revealed one at a time. And each one is its own threshold for Scott Pilgrim to face and move through. That movie, like you said, Nick, is all about character progression. Right? But what that movie does really well is pace out character progression. Nothing between each fight ever feels forced, and it never feels like unnecessary. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thoughts on Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Scott just be leveling up throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, that's our favorite much. Zero right there.
It's true. He is a big leveler.
Honestly, that actually helped me out a lot because your boy's a normie when it comes to movies or like cinematography.
Mm-hmm. That
I
movie is
love movies.
really good for cinematography as well. The editing is fantastic.
Scott Pilgrim.
100%. What?
That's Edgar
Yeah.
Wright.
What?
Edgar Wright
Edgar
is
Wright,
probably
yeah.
one. Edgar Wright, probably the
Alan
best
Poe.
cinematographer slash director, next to Wes Anderson and Quentin Tarantino. Those three are god tier, perfect cinematographers, perfect writers, perfect directors.
God
They're
boys.
amazing.
They're God boying it up.
Mhm.
They're perfect. I'm sure. I don't know if Newton has a different opinion than me, but those three are
absolutely. Wes Anderson is so good. Like every time I think of Wes Anderson, I think of that shot in Grand Budapest Hotel where the inspector shows up to the hotel, and the manager of the hotel, he's like, "She's dead, and you think I killed her?" And then he runs away. And instead of like every other movie where they would follow him running away, we just get this still camera shot where we see him run all the way to the back of the frame and up some stairs, and it's like comical camera work. There's I
Okay,
don't
so
know.
it's an
I'm
interesting
like
thing.
pretty sure I've seen that movie.
Have you?
Yeah.
I really like those movies. So what Wes Anderson does really well, I think, is that he takes standard claymation cinematography and applies it to live action. And he
I
gets
have
that
never thought about
He
that.
makes everyone pose and takes pictures of them over and over.
Okay, so
Jesus
like
Christ.
what I
that
mean,
is
okay, have you ever
phenomenal.
seen The Fantastic Mr. Fox?
No.
Wes Anderson directed The Fantastic Mr. Fox. Don't
So
even
I've
think about
heard.
the movie as stop motion. Think of it as its own like live action thing. Like ignore the fact that it is stop motion. But every cinematic style in that movie is parallel to shots and stylings you'll see in Grand Budapest Hotel or The French Dispatch, which hasn't come out yet. I'm sure it has the same thing. Or Life Aquatica with Henry Zizou. Is it Henry Zizou? Yeah. Or like
Of course it is.
literally any Wes Anderson film except for his first two have that same cinematic styling to it. Like color is important.
Mm-hmm.
The camera doesn't motivate the characters. The characters motivate the camera.
Yes, and that's how it should be done.
Yeah, I could see that.
Got him.
Every like director, writer, or pretty much they all have their own style depending on what it is. I know very little about filmography and cinematography. There's very little that I know, but I can appreciate how much work goes into thoughts when it comes to certain shots or angles, and how
Yeah.
like you said, like the character adds on to the camera,
Yeah.
not reverse. But I feel like the camera could definitely impact the scene a lot more. Like
So on
David Fincher, I know very little, but from what I've seen when it comes to The Social Network, Panic Room, and
I like the Panic Room.
Panic
I've
Room
seen
is
that movie
honestly
too.
like one of the best movies. It's one of my favorites,
actually, yeah.
and I don't watch movies, and I'd say that's probably up there.
It's hard, yeah. I feel like it's the same way though, in the sense of like, I know a good scene when I see one. I think I've just done a lot of stuff, and like I know good acting, and I can tell good writing. But I feel like I'm a pretty harsh critic to a lot of movies too.
Oh, I know, Vince. We all know.
No,
But
I think
I've done
I'm
a
like-
lot of stuff.
I'm a good.
I wouldn't say you're a harsh critic. I think you expect something more from people who get paid to do it.
Yeah, I do.
Like you, like you're not gonna pay almost $15 to go see a movie for them to do, at best, minimum.
I just don't understand. Like, I'm not on board with like a lot of people's opinions on a lot of movies. At least the few I've seen. And it's like, sometimes people love a movie and I don't get it. Like, I know I don't know his name, but I know one guy who's known for like his cinematography, but he's like the worst writer is the guy who made 300. And
Zack Snyder?
like, is that him?
Is that Zack Snyder?
That
Yeah,
was
I don't know.
That's a Snyder movie.
That's
Oh, well, there we go.
Snyder.
Well, there we go. Coming back. But apparently that guy is known for like having really good cinematography, but the problem is his writing always falls, right?
You know what's interesting
So,
is
like-
that I always see like Zack Snyder films as black and white. Like they always come off as black and white to me, or like they should be shot in
Yeah.
black and white. And they
Is
like,
that just because of how the color is, like how everything's portrayed, or is that just
yeah,
like a mental
that might
thing
be
for you?
That might be it. Like, but a lot of he has this weird, like film noir, dark style. Like his color palette is very dark consistently, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Dawn of Justice was really dark. Like you couldn't see in like half the fucking movie. Jesus Christ. There's so much CG in that movie and you still can't see.
Yeah.
Or in
Or
300's pretty dark too. Even in well lit areas, that
But
movie is really
could
dark.
you agree that they all look cool?
Yeah.
I want to talk
100
about a Zack Snyder movie that doesn't get a whole lot of talk.
Bright?
Sucker Punch.
Oh, wrong movie. I like that movie a lot. You can't convince me it's bad. The movie's great.
The movie.
Yeah, I've heard bad things.
You
I've only
cannot
heard
convince
bad
me-
things
You
about
cannot
that
convince
movie.
me that that movie is bad. I love every minute of it. I
Wait,
don't.
give me a shot. Give me 10 seconds to try to convince you that's bad.
Okay, go for it.
I'm using all the time. Hold on.
Just
That
Googling
movie
stuff real quick.
Is bad.
Got him.
I can't. Nope.
But,
Hard no.
but it's weird.
I think
'cause,
you would like. I
I'll
think
see
you
a
would like
movie. Go
it.
ahead. You think so?
I think
I
you
don't
would
know.
like it a lot more than
I'm
most people.
I'm pretty tough to please.
Doesn't matter.
Then
if you-
again, we
I'm
are
not, I'm not
normies.
tough to please.
no, it's not. Everybody can enjoy a movie.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm
I'm gonna hit.
saying
I'm
that,
gonna
like,
hit you with that Gusteau logic. Anyone can enjoy a movie.
But a movie can't enjoy anyone.
Thank you.
True.
Got him.
I
That
think.
Ratatouille.
Well, it's just I think I'm trying to think of the most recent movie I've seen. That was like
Hunt for the
an
Wild
actual,
Wilder
like,
People.
movie. No, I think it was Parasite,
Good movie.
and that movie's
I
phenomenal.
still need to watch that.
I still haven't seen it yet. I promise I'll watch it one of these days.
I don't care.
I
but
just don't watch movies.
I know I don't either.
should.
So
I
like,
only watch it
turned
in
on,
theaters.
I was thinking
and I
about it
watched
like
and it's awesome.
I was thinking about on the flip side to Wes Anderson, where character movement motivates camera movement versus camera movement motivating character movement. Edgar Wright does the complete opposite,
Yeah,
Where-
100%.
but he does it so well.
So well, yes.
Like those
Th-
whip
that's why I brought up.
pans. Oh,
That's why I brought up like his movies because everything everything ties in together. Like
I think
I don't even know how to describe. Everything's like spaced out but connected together
I
so
think you-
well.
I think you'll understand this movie when I say it. But Hot Fuzz, I think is
God, I fucking
100%.
love that movie.
that
Oh,
movie
that's my
is
favorite
you-
movie.
You made me watch it, Nick.
I did make you watch. I didn't make you watch. I was like, hey, you want to
Watch
watch
it.
this? And you were like,
Watch it.
sure. I'll watch it.
Well, it's because you literally wouldn't shut up about it. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. I want to see what this is all about. Because
And was
this
it a
is
good
apparently-
movie? Was it a good movie?
Hell yeah, it was.
Oh,
I never said it wasn't.
And you shut up. So I mean, it's a win-win situation.
That's by far my favorite Edgar Wright movie.
it's mine too.
It's up there. I say so for me. Like I said, I don't watch a lot of movies, and so for me with Edgar Wright, it'd probably be Baby Driver because of how, like, obviously, Hot Fuzz has
That movie's good.
a shit ton of like action.
Did we watch that together?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was at your apartment.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, but it would be Baby Driver for me because, like, just the way the camera movement, it makes me feel very immersed, as if I was like playing a video game.
It adds a lot of like high octane like
Yes,
feeling to
that-
it. Like it's
It
kinda
adds
cool.
like some sort of, I don't want to say like anxiety, but like you're just on the edge of your seat the whole entire time, because you don't.
Yeah.
especially with like how much work they put into it, not only just not just filming it, but having to go like all the training it took, especially for all
Yeah.
like the car scenes and all the
That-
drift scenes.
Yeah, the first drift scene where I think he reverse drifts.
He
between-
reverse drifts backwards between
Yeah.
two like semi trucks, pretty much.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
obviously one just wasn't there, but they added the little details that if you just like look at it, like obviously if you look at it very closely, like I don't want to say like frame by frame, but slow down, you can obviously see, oh, yeah, that's fake, and there's a water puddle right there, so he could slip a little bit more to make it pass through and not hit a wall or the other truck, just a little stuff like that. It adds a lot because it's not only just like, oh, it's a part of the movie, it's about how they made the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just little interesting details like that I wouldn't notice, but but if I watched a video on it, which I did, then I would, and I could appreciate it more and more because of how much effort it takes. It's very five-head.
Did you know that that movie is all in time with whatever Baby Driver's listening to?
Yes.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great
I
gimmick.
noticed that while watching it. It's so cool. That
The whole
movie's
soundtrack also is just fire.
That movie's really good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I kind of want to shift over to a bad note. Godzilla 2014.
Okay.
The best movie ever.
So-
Are you talking about Shin Godzilla?
No,
No, that
not
was
Shin.
2016. Shin Godzilla was
I don't know
2016, I think.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'm gonna start off by saying that
Best movie I've ever seen?
you shouldn't have killed off your big name
Yeah, Bryan
in
Cranston.
the first 10 minutes. The moment he died, I
Mr.
fell asleep.
Walter White.
I went to
Yeah.
go see this movie at the drive-in, and the moment he died, I was like, cool, guess I don't get to see him do anything fun. And then
Yeah.
I
But
knocked
you
out.
get to see Godzilla.
It's like
See?
that sometimes though.
Fucking barely.
Yeah.
There's a compilation video on YouTube of all of the Godzilla scenes in that movie, and it's 8 minutes long. That movie's a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, it has like basically nothing to do with Godzilla, and a lot to do with setting up the organizations you see in the next two films,
Yeah,
or three.
it's all human
considering Kong. But
shit.
it's a great starting point. It's not like a great starting. I think it's a good platform. It's not great. I'm
Yeah,
trying.
but like when the when the two monsters, Godzilla and whatever that other thing was called, I can't even remember. When they charged at each other for the first time, and it was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be it. This is when the monsters fight, and then they zoom out to news coverage, like a supercut of news coverage of the fight because we missed all of it because we went back to human stuff. I was so mad at I was like actually angry at the movie in the theater. I was like, I can't
Well,
believe you just did that.
When you were showing us
You know
human
what?
stuff, we missed out on what we paid for.
That's how I felt too. Because, like, the movie after Godzilla at the drive-in was the Transformers movie with the Dinobots.
Another bad movie, yeah.
But the Dinobots don't show up till the last 7 minutes. And they don't
Yep.
do anything. You don't hear Grimlock go, Grimlock don't like. Or Grimlock this. Like, you're so used to hearing Grimlock talk from back in the 80s. And it was just so
That movie is
heartbreaking
fantastic. Thank you very much.
to not hear Grimlock talk in the third person.
No,
That
Optimus
movie
Prime
is
just
so cool.
Grimlock is my favorite Dinobot, by the way, if you guys couldn't figure it out. Or my favorite
I
Also-
cannot figure that
Transformer.
out.
He's a T-Rex. He's great.
It's also completely forgivable if you forgot that Optimus Prime was in that movie because he was in it 3 times. He had 3 scenes in a Transformers movie.
Well, because it was all about freaking Bumblebee.
I guess, but they had a
Or
Bumblebee
Hot
movie.
Rod, right?
But that
Like,
didn't come out till like 2 years ago. So excuse
Yeah.
them for, finally making something just about him. How did he end up in that dump?
I do want to I want to talk about probably what is the worst edit or the weirdest scene that I've ever seen in a movie, and it comes from Godzilla 2014, and I'm going to read directly from my notes. The scene where one of the big monsters escapes from Area 52 or whatever it was called. They go to check on it, the giant monster, and they end up having to do it for themselves for whatever reason. Like they don't have the budget to surveil the one thing that they're hiding. And when they get there, they find that the big monster broke out of a mountain and somehow no one noticed. Then they go looking for it through the big hole that it created with binoculars, and they find it. It was right there. Like when they find it in the binoculars, it takes up the entire view. And then like they pull away the binoculars and it's just over there. It's right there. They did not need binoculars.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, it's just
Just
over
chilling.
there terrorizing a town. Like what? It's the strangest scene that I've seen in any movie. And like I have taken 3 in the notes because that movie suffers from death of 1,000 cuts because where'd it go? I have a very specific example. Here we go. There's a scene where he uses a car to vault a fence. It's 4 seconds long and they have 13 cuts. They cut from him.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Notorious.
They cut to him running through an alleyway up to the car. Then they cut to his legs touching the car. Then they cut to him jumping over the car. Then they cut to him landing on the fence. Then they cut to the reverse side where he's scaling the fence. Cut back to the reverse side to show him actually like on the top of the fence. Cut back to the other side to show him going over the fence. Cut back to the other side to show him falling off of the fence. And then cut back to the other side to show him on the ground on the other side of the fence.
Dude, that's just so much work to show nothing.
Yeah, it's insane. I have no idea why they did that, but it's so much, and it makes me angry.
Isn't it strange when movies seem like they go out of their way to show you not the thing? Like,
Yeah.
Literally.
like what are you doing? Like just show. him,
But
like,
sometimes
do the
it's
thing.
sometimes it's good in my opinion. 'Cause
Also, Liam Neeson is like 70 years old. I don't expect that man to jump over nothing, let alone
No.
a goddamn fence off of a car. He's going to hit
Yeah.
that fence and fall. That's a lot
Yeah, but
liability.
that's why they have stunt doubles. But
Man, his stunt double's got to look 62, which means he's probably 60.
No. They just gotta do that in post. They just have to make them look old.
But those Taken movies aren't even good to begin with.
Yeah.
The first one was all right.
Yeah, the first one was a movie.
Like, why is there
Yeah.
3? It's sort of like, why did they make another Die
Cash.
Hard movie in 2008?
Cash grab, easy.
When everybody that had watched the original Die Hards has already moved on.
Yeah.
Like, it,
Shia LaBeouf, though.
Ooh, daddy right there.
was Shia LaBeouf in Die Hard? He wasn't.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
He was in Live Free or Die Hard.
Oh, nope, that wasn't Shia LaBeouf. I don't think so. I don't think that was
Is this
Shia
a-
LaBeouf.
Is this a bit? Because that was Shia LaBeouf.
Because that was 100% Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Even I know that was Shia LaBeouf.
All right, I got one more thing to add.
Wait.
Wait.
That was Justin Long. No.
I told you! Get out of here. This is not a bit.
Not
I know what I'm talking about.
American Dragon.
Jake Long.
Jake Dragon.
Jake Dragon.
All right. So I'm just gonna say one more thing, and just because this came out I said recently, 2 years ago almost, but I feel like El Camino just doesn't get enough appreciation.
Is it the Ryan Gosling
It was hyped
one?
for 2 weeks, and no one has ever talked about it since. It was the Breaking Bad movie.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never seen it.
I mean, that's because
honestly,
it's a passable
it-
movie.
the cinematography in that movie, just how much they did not only to show emotion without directly having the camera pointed at the person or like directly the character looking at the camera directly, and also trying to recreate scenes, or I say recreate, I don't know if they actually did, but try making the camera angle the exact same, because obviously it's a Breaking Bad movie, and it's to pretty much to end it for good.
Yeah.
And how much they have to recall certain things from the TV show. And because obviously they show like a bunch of flashbacks and stuff. And me watching it when I was like 13 and finishing it, I literally binge watched the whole entire series of Breaking Bad within like 2 weeks. Maybe 3. But just little things like that. Just, it hit me because of Breaking Bad being one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and my little footstep into cinematography for just in general. Because before I liked shitty movies like freaking Charlie's Angels. Don't even get me started on Full Throttle, dude.
I still love shitty
disaster.
Movies.
Get them started, boys.
But
Tell us about it.
just little stuff like that, I can appreciate. Like I'm still learning. Obviously, I don't watch movies mainly because I just don't have the attention span unless if I'm in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hate distractions, especially noise. Like outside noise just upsets me.
Yeah.
But I'd say El Camino is probably up there with one of my favorite movies of all time because of how much work they put into it, and because it ties into one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
So,
and I don't know if you guys watch Breaking Bad or the El Camino movie, but it's pretty fucking good.
I have not, but I like how they label it a Breaking Bad movie, as if there's plans for another movie or another line of movies.
I think they need people to know
Breaking Bad
because
movies.
Well, because if they just went in blind without knowing, oh, it's Breaking Bad,
no one's gonna go see El Camino.
I think a lot of people would have seen it regardless.
Yeah,
you know, and then people
like,
it would have spread like wildfire that it is a Breaking Bad canon movie. You know, I think we live in an era where people spread information so fast like that. You know, like I'm sure people would have known regardless, even before the movie came out, whether or not it was a Breaking Bad movie. But that's another argument, though.
Yeah, they didn't really show off so much of it, so that's I feel like that's why they also titled or like subtitled it a Breaking Bad movie, because obviously people would go to see us like, oh, it's freaking Aaron Paul, like he's so sick, he was in Breaking Bad or like all these other movies and stuff. But I feel like I could appreciate that subtitle because there are a lot of stupid people in this world. That's no joke.
I think there's something to be said about those like small, like you didn't know until later when you looked it up whether or not it's like canonical, and that's like something that's really, really cool. Like with Unbreakable, Glass, and Split. Like no one knew that Split was the sequel to the movie Unbreakable, where Bruce Willis is an indestructible man, until the very end of the movie. And that was a movie where you were like, oh, I'm just going to go because this isn't like a Marvel movie where they have after credit scenes. But it did.
Yeah.
And then Glass comes out, and it's a phenomenal movie. Could have been better. But like that kind of stuff where like you don't expect a movie to be part of another world. And then you find out later there's something to be had there. Like there's some type of satisfaction that you'll get from that. And that's why like I don't think it was necessary for them to say, "Oh, it's a Breaking Bad movie." Because that also carries that like subtext that it is like a first movie in a line of movies that will be labeled Breaking Bad movies.
Which I would be down for.
I disagree with that.
I love Breaking Bad.
Why is that?
Breaking Bad is just so fire.
I don't think it gives off the vibe that there's going to be more.
No.
I don't think it's necessary, but I also don't think that it gives off the vibe of there's going to be more movies of this.
No. I don't think that.
That's not the vibe that it gives off.
I think it'd be
the vibe
cool.
that to me that it gives off is that it can't stand on its own.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, because it's literally the ending of Breaking Bad. Like, obviously, we still have that original Breaking Bad ending, but this is afterwards when all that happened. Like, it's
But
literally
I
right after all that happens.
I agree with Vincent there, but at the same time, why put out a movie that can't stand out on its own, that is also an ending to a series where the series is already ended, to somewhat solid critical acclaim?
To just tie everything up together.
But you also have a show called Better Call Saul, which
Doesn't
ties
do
up
that.
the behind loose ends, like the behind the scenes.
Yeah, but that's
stuff.
from a different perspective also.
But isn't El Camino also from a different perspective?
It's
No,
from Jesse's perspective after everything happens.
If
Like-
it were from
like-
Walter White's perspective, we'd be in a coffin for an hour and 45.
Well, I mean, obviously, like I don't expect us to like tell it from a character who's already passed away, but like I mean,
But also it's not just from Jesse's point of view. Like it's mainly Jesse's point of view, but there's also other stuff that comes into it, because there's complete scenes where either it's a flashback or just another character's point of view of a certain
So,
accident
but
or
that
whatever.
like that kind of just coincides with the same problem. Like it can't stand on its own. Why does it exist as a movie when maybe existing as like a television show would have been the better option? While like having a Breaking Bad movie sounds cool, it doesn't sound like it has a purpose besides being like, hey, this is just another perspective that we could have done in like 6 episodes as like a mini series. It would have
But
worked.
does
I
every
think it's
movie need
better
to have
to
a
think of
reasoning
it-
though?
Not every movie needs to have a reasoning, but movies that tie in with series have to do more, or they have to do something that they couldn't have done in the series. To me, at least. Otherwise, it just takes away from the experience you got from the ending of the movie or the series.
Well,
I feel like it's a perfect ending to the series. I feel like
yeah.
like how it is. I'm trying to think of like a way to like give an example, but fuck. Like think of, I know this is like a really bad like like way to like describe it or whatever, but like look at Harry Potter. Like the last 2 movies were from one book, and obviously there's just so much content from that they had to split it. And maybe the movie was an afterthought or whatever, or maybe after they're done with it, they were thinking about either TV specials or whatever. I feel like the movie I feel like it's a perfect medium to the ending of it, because it doesn't necessarily need to be a long series, just like how you said, like 6 episodes. Like obviously they could do it with 6 episodes, but I feel like having everything be put into one movie, how long is it? Like 2-hour movie or whatever. I feel like that is enough for it. Like also just randomly throwing out like, oh, here's the ending with like a special series or just like a special 6 episodes.
But that's
I feel like that'd just be off.
but that's what it
But a
feels
movie
like.
would make more sense.
That's what it feels like
To
regardless.
me, at least.
And I get where you're coming from with the Harry Potter thing. And like I understand that, but that's different than Breaking Bad, where the show is over, and that ending is something people talk about as probably one of the best endings for a television show. Where that show was one of those shows that started off rough and then got immediately better and stayed great, ended great, which is super rare with television. So to me,
Or just mediums in general.
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like the Breaking Bad movie needed to be a thing other than to explore Jesse's character more, which is fine. But it also doesn't stand to me on its own without saying it's a Breaking Bad movie.
I thought there was some controversy surrounding the end of Breaking Bad because it ended up being rushed by
A&E?
FX. Was it A&E?
Yeah.
Okay. It ended up being rushed in some way, and people were upset with it. So they came out with the movie to give a better ending.
Little Nick, what do you
Yeah,
think?
Or
Okay, so yeah, I could definitely see that. So I watched the final episode, literally the second I watched it live on TV with my sisters and their friends, and I could definitely see how people were complaining about it being rushed, because honestly it was. Everything was just happening so fast, and it really felt like you had to stop, like you'd have to pause it in order to like see what's actually going on because of how fast it's being paced at.
Mhm.
And especially the final scene, with just Jesse driving off and the police showing up to the scene,
Spoilers.
where people could just I didn't necessarily say the exact ending. I'm not saying any spoilers. But
it's such an
I
old
could definitely
show.
it definitely makes sense why people would want another like ending to it, because obviously that's very vague,
Yeah.
because it's literally just Jesse driving off very happy. I'm not going to say why he's happy, but he's very happy. And I feel like El Camino just sums it up, because it's literally right after he drives away, because like you said, it did feel very rushed, and obviously it was a good ending, but I feel like more people just want more of it because of how popular Breaking Bad is, and obviously there's Better Call Saul, but I feel like just having the El Camino movie add on and completely sum it up, because we don't know what happened to Jesse after all that went down, and the movie does a really good job explaining it within the amount of time. Like, obviously there didn't need to be a movie, but I feel like a movie was the perfect way to show it, like for like a true ending. But hey, maybe that's just me.
So you're telling me that they gave me the version of Breaking Bad in a movie?
Mhm.
You know.
They just showed you what happened to Jesse because people were worried about him. They
Well,
were
yeah,
like,
because
"That's my
his
boy."
ending was very vague.
He just drives off into the
He
sunset.
literally just drives off
See,
screaming.
But I think in that, like, that could have been them being like, oh, we could just give Jesse a show.
I wouldn't want to watch a show about Jesse.
Is Jesse
He
not?
just wants him to have a proper epilogue.
I would just like to see some sort of resolvement or some sort of ending for Jesse. Because obviously we saw an ending for Walter White, but Jesse still goes on.
Yeah. But would you even, like, I don't know. It's okay. You know what? I actually understand where you're coming from, and I feel you. Like, I kind of wish Game of Thrones was, like, able to get that same kind of treatment.
Oh my god, don't even talk about
No,
Game of
it's
Thrones.
okay. So that's a whole other thing. But like, I think Game of Thrones deserves a lot more than it got as a series.
100%.
But like, that's
That's the first show I've ever that's ever been in my zeitgeist where it's like people won't shut the heck up about it, and then the second the finale comes out, radio silence.
Yeah.
Dude,
I haven't had a heard a
literally
word
like
of
Promised Neverland season
recommendation.
it's hard to like,
No one has said anything about that
because it's hard
show
to it's
at all.
that's like a whole other discussion, maybe for another episode.
Hopefully. But
But
one
like,
last thing,
go for it.
Nick, I'm going to cut you off for 30 seconds. If not less. Promised Neverland Season 2. They fucked it up so bad. So bad that even the writers for the quote-unquote original part of it, or original adaptation of it, just they don't want their name to be in the credits. They literally said, no, we don't want our names to be in the credits because of how shitty it was. They literally went over, they put over 140 chapters into 6 22-minute episodes.
Ooh.
It's wild.
They literally. So Promised Neverland manga has 7 arcs, 7 story arcs. And in the anime, it was 2. It was.
Unless you count the forest as an arc.
That's not an arc at all.
I know.
0.
I'm just saying, if you want.
That's the forest
trying to
part
be a
is
little
like
nice.
is 3 episodes.
Yes.
When honestly it should have been 2, because the 3rd episode was just extended so much for no reason. Like even in the manga, it felt like a little bit long, but there was reasoning, obviously. But the way that they just released it and they decided to go with their own original story, yet still stuck to a lot of what the manga had, while skipping a lot of it, just blows my mind and how much they fucked up the anime.
And that's what bad writing can do to your works of art.
100%. Like, yeah, the animation was beautiful. In my opinion, the animation was really good. But that doesn't make up 140 chapters skipped into 6 episodes.
Yeah.
That I know this is gonna be one of our longest episodes, but I told Vince after we finished watching the first season, I read the second season. I told Vince, I'm like, hey, second season is gonna be so freaking good. It's gonna be around 4 seasons long. The whole TV show.
About it. So
and they fucked it up.
Do you feel like a liar? Did they make you into a liar?
They didn't make me into a liar. They just made themselves look dumb.
You know, it would be a good topic for another episode. Anime exclusively.
Anime exclusive episodes where we talk about our favorite animes, favorite anime movies, anime genres, etc.
I'm Nick and I love Soul Eater.
I'm Nick and I hate Promised Neverland Season 2.
I'm Noons and I have a love-hate relationship with Naruto.
I'm Vincent and I like movies.
I love Rim.
My favorite movie is Donnie Darko, but we'll talk about that enough.
Hey, so here at the S Plus Podcast, we're trying to improve on things. We're going to be trying out some new stuff the next few episodes. If you like it, hit us up on Twitter. If you don't like it, send us an email because we don't check that.
Comments on the YouTube?
Please, comment, share with your friends. We're trying to do more things. Instagram, S Plus Pod.
Follow us on Spotify.
Please do. That actually helps us a lot if you follow us on Spotify, because the more people that follow us, the more people that see us, which means the less we have to bother our friends.
Yeah.
Help you.
We looked up the YouTube analytics and it said that you guys aren't subscribed. We didn't actually look, and so we don't know.
It says that 80% of you guys watch but aren't even subscribed.
Yeah.
So if you could please hit that subscribe button.
Also,
and watch my Twitch.
Hit up our boy Vincent at Shadow Freak on Twitch. There isn't an A there. It's a 4.
Of an A in Freak.
Support the homies, please. If you got a friend that does an art of any type, or streams, or does something, support them. It's important that you do. But mostly support us, because we like doing this, actually. And we'll catch you guys next week on the S Plus Podcast.